A coronial inquest into the death of Martu woman Danielle Lowe exposes unconscious bias and missed healthcare opportunities in Whadjuk rehabilitation prison. Meanwhile, Indigenous women worldwide united at the UN calling for stronger action against violence and inequality. ANZ's $2 billion deal with the Australian government secures vital banking services for the Pacific, while concerns rise over the Northern Territory's failure to meet key closing the gap targets. In Victoria, nearly $3 million in grants will empower Aboriginal businesses, and the Western Bulldogs address Jamara Ugle-Hagan's ongoing challenges. Stay tuned for more. Kaya. This is the National Indigenous Times Daily News Bulletin for Friday the 14th of March. A coronial inquest into the death of 41-year-old Martu woman Danielle Lowe in Whadjuk Rehabilitation Prison in 2022 has revealed unconscious bias and a lack of access to Aboriginal healthcare workers. Ms. Lowe died after presenting symptoms of a cerebral aneurysm, but her care was not escalated. Solicitor Rosaline Jeffries highlighted the prison's failure to provide adequate healthcare, stating, "Over the following 15 days, there were several missed opportunities to escalate her care and fully investigate her symptoms." Ms. Lowe's 8 children, represented by a National Justice Project, are seeking justice for their mother. Her eldest daughter, Dakota Mongu, emphasised the need for change. She said, "We believe that this change should centre access for Aboriginal women in custody to culturally safe, timely, non-discriminatory and empowering healthcare." The National Justice Project and Partnership for Justice and Health will continue to advocate for better healthcare for Aboriginal women in custody. Indigenous women from around the world gathered at the United Nations to mark the 25th anniversary of the International Indigenous Women's Forum, where they released a political declaration calling for an end to violence, eradication of inequality, and amplification of their voices. The forum called for sanctions on gender-based violence, human trafficking, and the murder of Indigenous women, along with respect for traditional knowledge, access to sexual and reproductive health services, and inclusion in climate and biodiversity policymaking. Wanya and Kalkadoon lawyer Sandra Creamer, a board member for the forum, highlighted key issues like climate change, domestic violence, incarceration, and high suicide rates among Indigenous women. She emphasised the importance of connecting with the land, which is central to Indigenous identity and spirituality. Ms. Creamer expressed confidence that eradicating violence against Indigenous women could be achieved, even if not within this generation, then the next. She noted that the collective strength of Indigenous women is at the heart of their call to action. ANZ has struck a deal with the Australian government to ensure the continued provision of banking services in the Pacific, a region at risk of losing financial services due to low profitability. Under the agreement, Australia will provide $2 billion guarantee to ANZ Pacific's operations over 10 years, beginning in the second half of 2025. In return, ANZ will make annual payments to the Australian government and invest $50 million into enhancing digital services and maintaining its fee-free international money transfer service for the Pacific. ANZ operates in 8 Pacific nations and East Timor, employing over 1,200 people in the region and having invested $95 million in infrastructure over the last 5 years. CEO Shane Elliott affirmed the bank's commitment to advancing economic development and connecting Pacific customers to trade and investment opportunities. Experts are increasingly concerned over the Northern Territory's failure to make progress on half of its closing the gap targets, with the latest data from the Productivity Commission revealing a backwards trend. The Aboriginal Medical Services Alliance Northern Territory has stated the governments are failing to meet their commitments, particularly in a region where a quarter of the population is Indigenous, with many living in remote areas. The latest figures show a decline in life expectancy for First Nations women, as well as regression in areas such as employment, early childhood education, birth weight, child development, and youth engagement. Incarceration rates for adults and youth detention targets have also worsened, with experts concerned that the lowering of the age of criminal responsibility and other punitive policies are contributing to the soaring incarceration levels. Chief Executive of the Alliance, Dr. John Patterson, emphasised the impact of the government's failure, saying it comes at the expense of the health and well-being of Indigenous people, particularly vulnerable children. The NT's Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Steve Eddington, maintained that the government remains committed to the national agreement on closing the gap. However, critics argue that the introduction of policies known to increase Indigenous incarceration undermines this commitment. The Victorian Government has announced almost $3 million in grants for more than 80 businesses through the Victorian Aboriginal Business Investment Program. These grants aim to support Indigenous entrepreneurship, create jobs, and boost regional economies across various industries, including tourism, manufacturing, and environmental management. The program will provide grants between $5,000 and $10,000 for 60 businesses to fund training, mentorship, networking, marketing, and other expert services. Additionally, over 20 businesses will receive larger grants of up to $100,000 to help them expand into new markets, complete building works, and develop their workforce. Crew Caucus Chair Jason Mifsud highlighted that investing in Aboriginal businesses is not just an economic opportunity, but also a pathway to empowering communities and achieving economic equality. First Peoples Minister Natalie Hutchins emphasised that providing the tools for Aboriginal communities to build and grow businesses leads to better outcomes. To be eligible for the funding, businesses must be at least 51% Indigenous owned and have an economic connection to regional Victoria. The projects funded through the program must be completed by October 31st, 2025. For more details, businesses can visit the Business Victoria website. Western Bulldogs coach Luke Beveridge has acknowledged that it will be some time before forward Jamara Ugle-Hagan is ready for an AFL return. The 22-year-old has been placed on a flexible training arrangement due to personal challenges, and his attendance at future sessions remains uncertain. Beveridge stressed that the road to recovery would be complex. Reports of relationship strains with teammates and Beveridge have surfaced, but the coach remained focused on bringing Ugle-Hagan back in the tent. However, from an integrity standpoint, Beveridge stated there's no immediate path back to the AFL side. That's today's Daily News Roundup for the National Indigenous Times. For more news, head to nit.com.au and sign up to our free newsletter today.